This isn't fear-mongering, this is your wake-up call. What if the greatest threat to the West wasn't a missile, wasn't a war, but a mindset? For decades, the West believed a beautiful lie, that democracy was inevitable, that capitalism was destiny, that every nation eventually would become a version of them. This belief shaped foreign policy, economics, and diplomacy. It led to wars, sanctions, summits, all built on the assumption that the world was catching up to the West. But what if the West wasn't ahead anymore? No specific lines provided in the outline for this scene. Meet Kishore Mahbubani, Singaporean diplomat, scholar, and realist. He doesn't speak in sound bites, but when he speaks, world leaders listen. Kishore Mahbubani. The West has lost touch with reality. China has already risen. While the US debates TikTok and culture wars, while Europe negotiates gas prices and immigration, China is quietly building an empire. Economically, technologically, militarily, and ideologically. But here's what's different. China isn't trying to become the West, it's building a world where it doesn't have to. It began with factories, sweatshops, knockoff products. Made in China used to be a joke, now it's a warning. In 2010, China overtook Japan as the second largest economy. In 2022, it became the EU's biggest trading partner. Over 140 countries are now tied to its Belt and Road Initiative, ports in Greece, railways in Africa, data cables in the Pacific. This isn't aid, it's influence. And while the West congratulated itself on spreading democracy, China bought the world's future, one contract at a time. The West assumed wealth would change China. More trade equals more democracy, right? Wrong. Instead, China flipped the script. It used capitalism without surrendering control. Elections? No. Stability? Yes. Over 800 million people lifted out of poverty in just 3 decades. Meanwhile, after the 2008 crash, Western economies floundered. China, it doubled down on 5-year plans, long-term strategy, and state-backed innovation. While Washington gets gridlocked over budgets, Beijing builds cities, highways, and AI labs. The West assumed wealth would change China. More trade equals more democracy, right? Wrong. Instead, China flipped the script. It used capitalism without surrendering control. Elections? No. Stability? Yes. Over 800 million people lifted out of poverty in just 3 decades. Meanwhile, after the 2008 crash, Western economies floundered. China, it doubled down on 5-year plans, long-term strategy, and state-backed innovation. While Washington gets gridlocked over budgets, Beijing builds cities, highways, and AI labs. Once America defined innovation. Google, Apple, Facebook, the West set the pace, but now China is sprinting past. 5G, China built the world's largest network. AI, China files more patents than the US quantum computing, fintech, semiconductors. China is catching up fast. And while the West debates privacy, China builds ecosystems like WeChat, chat, pay, travel, shop, all in one app. Who's innovating now? In Shenzhen, factories can prototype, produce, and ship a new gadget in 24 hours. That's not imitation, that's domination. The West still sees China as a regional player, but in reality, China now has the largest navy by ship count. It's investing in AI-driven warfare, space tech, cyber weapons, and hypersonic missiles. But here's the key. It's not trying to fight like America. Instead of global bases, China builds artificial islands. Instead of carriers, it builds denial systems, weapons that make invasion impossible. China's message is clear. We won't start the fight, but we'll finish it before you even get close. 2023. China brokers peace between Iran and Saudi Arabia. No one saw it coming. Not the US, not Europe. Why did it work? Because China doesn't preach. It doesn't attach strings. It offers infrastructure, investment, and respect, not lectures on democracy. And for many countries, that's a better deal. Now, Beijing hosts summits. Washington hosts debates. The shift is subtle, but seismic. Section ideological shift and conclusion duration, 5 minutes to 6 minutes, plus 10 seconds. Here's the scariest part for the West. China believes in its model. It doesn't need validation, it doesn't crave approval. Its system, centralized, efficient, authoritarian, is working. Not just for China, but for nations watching from Africa, Asia, Latin America. Why mimic a West that looks divided, broken, and stuck in gridlock? Why emulate democracies plagued by inequality, opioid crises, housing shortages, and mass shootings? The global South is watching, and many are switching sides. For too long, the West saw its power as permanent, inevitable, God-given. But history doesn't guarantee anything. China's rise is not a phase, it's a feature of the New World Order. Kishore Mahbubani, the West isn't collapsing, but it is being replaced, piece by piece. The illusion that China must change is the West's blind spot. Because here's the truth, China doesn't need to become the West to beat the West. Should the West be scared? No, but it should be wide awake. History doesn't reward those who cling to nostalgia, it rewards those who adapt. Right now China is adapting, building, planning, thinking in centuries, not election cycles. So the real question is, will the West wake up before it's too late?